Hey guys, welcome to the Dreadcutter Podcast.
If you want to know how to blast your opponent down to zero authority, come check us out.
Woo! Woo!
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Dreadcutter Podcast. As always, I'm Ryan, the bachatarocstar.
And I am Pat Starballa, Jimeno Scrap Pipes.
We're going to be talking about initial trade row and making plans for the game by looking at it.
Yeah, great topic.
So usually what I want to do is look at the first trade row and sort of think about how I'm going to win. What's my plan for the game? So if I see a lot of small cost cards, I'm typically thinking, all right, small cost cards, I don't necessarily need a lot of trade, so I'm going to go for damage and be aggressive. If I see a couple of 8 drops or 7 drops, I'm like, all right, let me try to focus on trade and try to get the big cards. But for the most part, and then also you want sort of cards that are always good, scrap cards, cards that draw, cards that deal efficient damage. Those are good in any deck. And that's usually what I want to do. I want to look at that trade row and start to formulate a plan. I may not stick with it, but I want to start going, all right, that card's how I think I'm going to win. Or if I get this card and this card, that's how I'm going to win.
Yeah. And I think just being mindful, just saying what is on the trade row? Actually read. Don't just look at big damage or big just know exactly what especially for an intermediate player. You have to know exactly what the cards do, because you might think that there's really cool 4 or 5 cards there, but then there might be 2 cards that are 2 or 3 trade that are really valuable that you might want to get early on, So if we what I'm thinking about is just having a plan and then sticking to it. It's if I'm going to go scrap, I better go scrap early, or if I have healing, I better make sure I have other blues to work with it. You want to really think about synergy early on. What is the most viable synergies that I can have early on? Is it blue? Is it yellow? Or whatever. I usually pick a color and then try to stick with it. That's really my simple plan. And so, and obviously, if there's really big damage cards or really nice, if there's a 7 or 8 drop that you're oh my god, if I got this and I would win, then I would think about trade. So it really depends on the trade row. And what it has. You have to be mindful on every turn about not only what you're doing, but what your opponent is doing, and then really feeling out and trusting your gut instincts.
Yeah. So let's go to the trade row. New feature on the podcast.
Yes. Okay.
Here's what we got. Okay. So starting from left to right, if you're listening, we got Trade Hauler, Probot, Frontier Hawk, Command Center, and Blob Alpha. This is an excellent early trade row. It gives us a lot of options. So, and we're really lucky. We started with 3 trade. Woohoo! So there are a couple different ways you can play this hand, right? We can get a Frontier Hawk, a Probot, Frontier Hawk Trade Hauler, Frontier Hawk Explorer. We can skip the Frontier Hawk if we don't want that. My initial thoughts, there's a scrap card out there that I can afford. Typically, I'm going to want to grab that, keep it away from my opponent, make our deck more efficient. I also like the Frontier Hawk. It's a card draw. It's a discard. I like it. I think both of those cards are really great. I think they're nice foundational cards. I say go Frontier Hawk first, Probot second. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that would maximize the damage, deck really fast, and so that's one of the ways that you can do it. I'm always a sucker for looking at the biggest card first and kind of working my way down. So I'm looking at the Blob Alpha right now. I'm looking at big.
What are your thoughts on the Blob Alpha?
It's a big juicy 10, So the thing is, we don't have any scrapper, trade row scrapper cards, and so that's going to be out there, and somebody's going to get it eventually, And so the way that I would play it is actually I would limit my opponent's ability to get Blob Alpha just because I know it's a very monumental card, And so I would actually go Frontier Hawk Trade Hauler. You always want to think buying the lowest card first that you want and then buying the bigger cost because you never know what is going to come out next. You might have a cutter or some sort of really amazing 2, that just maximizes your deck. And so you want to always start with the first, the lowest, buying the lowest cost card. And so that's what I'm thinking right now. Frontier Hawk, trade hauler, maximize my chance to get blob alpha, and also I get damage, so it'll give me some extra time to survive.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, both strategies, both ideas are good. It kind of depends on, like I said, your plan for the hand. So if your plan for the hand is to try to get blob alpha, then Frontier Hawk Trade Hauler, best way to go. If your plan for the hand is scrap and try to stick with middle damage and, maybe
Draw some.
yeah,
some
maybe
more
not go as
cards.
hard for the blob alpha and try to win with just sort of mid-tier damage, that's fine too. Remembering too, we're going to have somewhere between 3 and 5 trade coming up next. So maybe we can get the command center. We're at least going to get an explorer for sure next turn, and it's going to depend on what pops up next. But the nice part is those 3 cards, however you decide to buy them, they set you up for the future. And that's really what you want to be thinking about in your initial trade route. So Pat, let's go ahead and buy that Frontier Hawk, see what flips. And orbital platform. That's good. That's great.
Yeah,
We
and
may
that's gonna
want
actually
next time.
that actually might force a hand. So, like if you were to buy one of these two, well, you're gonna have to think about like you're gonna have to think about like if who's gonna get the yellows in the future, because he did start with the yellow here,
That's true.
and that's like the synergy. And so, like what do you want to do? Do you want to like go scrapper like your strategy,
As much as I want to get blob alpha, I don't like the idea of giving my opponent a scrapper. Especially when there's only one out there. I typically like to get the scrap edge as soon as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good either. I think this is a 50-50 one. So why don't we just go with yours for now, and then we'll see. Because the opponent could get blob alphas. But we'll go with your strategy for this one.
Obviously, I worry about them getting blob alpha.
And see now there's now there's all these yellows out here. Yeah. So he now this opponent has a distinct advantage because now the opponent has to grab these yellows away.
Right.
Otherwise, these is super synergy right here because you have draw. Discard and draws, and you have scrap. That's a very deadly combination.
Yeah, there's a lot of cycle. There's base protection. This game will most likely be a race for the blob alpha and a race for the bases.
Yeah. Okay. Did you want to continue with this trade and see what we're doing?
Now, as the second player, we've just seen our opponent buy a Frontier Hawk and a Probe Bot. So already I'm worried about him getting a scrap edge on us. So my thinking is we need to counter that somehow. My thinking is let's go with the recycling station. It gives us 2 draws, which will help mitigate his scrap/draw advantage that he currently has.
Yeah.
Plus he doesn't have enough damage to kill it right now, so it may stay out for multiple turns.
Yeah, I mean I would agree because I think that the recycling station is like a, it could be like a 5-cost card. It's like, just that good, but I think it's more powerful than these other 2, although an alternative option would actually be to get command center because that could also get you to the blob alpha also because I don't think your opponent has enough damage to actually take it down on some turns.
Yeah.
So that's also what I'm thinking.
That's true too, and it gives you trade. And there's also something to be said about going orbital platform trade hauler, which actually now that I think about it might be the better play.
Well, because you're now going to have access to blob alpha.
Yeah,
and
I take it back. I like that.
You'll have that one too. I think it's either or. This will keep. Yeah, if you get this, then your opponent will definitely not get blob alpha.
I don't know if I want to let him get recycling station though. God, this card is so good though.
Yeah, I know. So there's the risk rewards though. If you get this and this, there's no damage here. So he gets recycling station. The recycling station stays up. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Or command center stays up. So, but the thing is, either or. I think that there's no damage right now. So I think you have to get the best either the best combination that's either going to get you this or take away the best yellow card.
Yeah.
So you could,
yeah. And so this is what we talk about when we say you've got to formulate a plan for the hand. What are we trying to do? Are we trying to counter our opponent's strategy, or are we just going to further our own strategy?
Yeah, so he's trying to scrap right away. He's trying to scrap right away and also get some more. So he's going to be wanting to target the recycling station and the orbital platform.
Yeah, which is why I think we should take those cards away from him.
Yeah.
The question is, though, is one recycling station better than an orbital platform and a trade hauler?
Well, I think Trade Hauler is just going to give you more access to these two cards in the future if he can't pick them up, you know?
Yeah.
So
I agree. I'm leaning more towards.
I'm leaning towards Trade Hauler and Orbital Platform.
It's going to suck giving our opponent a recycling station.
Yeah, but the chance to get a Blob Alpha, like, that's way more worth it, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So let's go ahead and do
Trade
that.
Hauler first.
Trade Hauler first, he comes out. Oh, we got a Cruiser. Ooh, that changes things. Wow.
So many good yellows out here.
Hey, it is this episode 7.
Guys, I know, right?
Yeah. And so like now this changes things a little. Now we have a damage card here, and that actually would be really cool against the base defense, you know? To defend against the bases, you know?
I mean, he doesn't have bases yet,
attack.
but he's about
He
to.
will have one.
But
and
he will, yeah.
We have no damage to take down any bases. So I actually think the best choice is to get Light Cruiser, you know? Because
We've got
if he
no
gets
cycle, we've got no draw, though.
but if he gets this, or he gets this, or he gets this,
We need to kill it, right?
yeah, we're fucked, basically. You know?
Yeah, I'm with you here. I'm with you.
Yeah.
He's going to get one of them.
He's gonna get one of them, so you might as well get something that can kill it, you know?
Yeah.
Otherwise, this base stays up, God knows what happens, you know?
And he can only buy one of them anyway.
Yeah.
So we can buy the Light Cruiser now and then buy the
This
other.
is not going to serve us.
He doesn't buy it.
This is not going to serve us at all. Like, you know, it's only just going to stay up there and then
I mean, it cycles, you know.
It cycles, but it's not going to serve
recycling
us.
station.
I don't think it's going to serve us as much as the Light Cruiser is, you know?
Okay, I'm down with that. I'm down with that.
Yeah, so we're going to take Light Cruiser. We got the Screecher. Oh, okay, that actually is interesting. Yeah.
Oh, man, that's a good card. Shoot.
Yes, we're going to end turn here.
All right, so unfortunately we only get 3 trade, which is
That's, yeah, pretty bad.
not that good.
He might want to, like...
We got a couple options here.
He might want to get the Screecher, you know?
So we just saw our opponent buy a Light Cruiser and buy a Trade Hauler.
Yeah.
So he's got trade. He's got some damage. Not too worried right now. We've got the Scrap Edge though. We've got some damage. I kind of want to just keep cycling. You know, I think Orbital Platform is the way to go here.
Either that or you can get Screecher.
Or get the Screecher and try to scrap both
because
of them.
you're like, oh, I think this dude can get the Blob Alpha. I don't want him to get it. And I don't want him to get Recycling Station either.
That's actually pretty good too.
Because he will, this dude, well, actually, no, he has only 3 on the
He's only
next
going to have
one.
3 trade though.
So he actually won't be able to buy any. So you might want to just think of just even getting this and then waiting for a turn and seeing if you can
I think getting the Orbital Platform is the right play.
Yeah, because you
He's
can
only
wait
got,
a
if we
turn.
buy the Orbital Platform, he's going to be forced to buy the Screecher and scrap the Blob Alpha in the Recycling Station.
Well, no, because we don't have any trade. So he wants to leave those out.
Yeah, that's true.
So if we get this, it's only because we know that he can't get it either, you know?
Yeah. The question is, do we fear Blob Alpha more than we fear him getting Recycling Station, Command Center, stuff like that?
Yeah, so like we can either get Screecher and just be like, you know, fuck it, I don't want him to get any of them, like, or Orbital Platform will just, you know, continue to cycle his deck, which we don't really have that much right now, you know?
You know what? I'm actually leaning towards the Screecher now that I think about it.
Well, because like, well, I mean, you can, yeah, I mean, but the thing is, yeah, he also has only 3 trade on the next turn, you know? So he will be able to get the Screechers if you want that trade control.
No, you're right. He's only got 3 trade. So actually, the Orbital Platform is the right play.
Yeah, because then we have a chance to get one of these 2. It's going to force him now to get Screecher, you know?
Yeah.
And then possibly scrap something and, you know, figure something. So
No, you're right.
I'm thinking that, perhaps like getting an Orbital Platform
Plus 2, it'll give us a second draw and discard card.
Yeah, so I'm thinking this.
Yeah, I agree.
So go back here.
Right.
Now he only has 3. He's going to be forced to getting Screecher, or if he wants, he can also try to get Explorers if he wants to maximize.
Really try to get the Blob Alpha?
Blob Alpha. And we have now a Death World.
I think
you
you need to buy the Screecher because if your opponent buys it, then he can scrap the Blob Alpha and then you don't get it.
Yeah, so I mean, I would actually, from my end, I would get the Screecher, and I would actually scrap Recycling Station and Command Center, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
So that would
Our
be like,
opponent has 2 yellow cards too, and he's got a lot of synergy. He's already got a scrap edge. We want to
yeah,
keep.
we just want to keep the cycles away.
But we want to keep the big cards too, so that way we can have access to Blob Alpha and to, you know.
Yeah. So that, I was like, Recycling Station because it's too much, and then,
Want to use it again? Get rid of Command Center?
We want to get rid of Command Center because we don't have a lot. Well, okay,
yeah, let's get rid of Command Center too.
Because that's a good foundational card too. And he has yellows, I mean, he's gonna get Smuggler, but that's not gonna be as bad as having Command Center up.
I'd rather give him Smuggler than give him Command Center.
Yeah. Okay. And then we do that, and then boom. Yeah. So.
So let's do one more round, and then.
Yeah, and then we'll continue. Yeah, because we should do the next topic now.
Yeah.
Okay. So might as well use the ability. Yeah.
Of course.
And then sometimes you don't, but there's certain situations.
Definitely do it now. There's no reason not to.
So then we have Vipe, which will give us enough for the trade bot.
We'll do a trade bot smuggler.
And so that's
too bad we don't get Barter World, but I think these are two.
These are still good. Okay.
Yeah. Again,
then
recycling, we're drawing. That's
all right. And then we will come back later. So.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. So that's just a little intro into like what our thought processes are in terms of like the initial trade rows and kind of like the strategies that go from there. So cool. Amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about there. And the main point is just like you want to start formulating your plans right away. Turn 1, what's my thoughts? What are my plans? If I buy this, what is my opponent doing? If I buy this, what am I trying to do now? Thinking about, do I want to further my plans or do I want to stop my opponent's plans? Things like that.
And yeah, I mean, me personally, I just I'm very curious, and so I just kind of want, I kind of wait to see what comes out next, and so just following your initial like plans, and then being able to pivot when you see like lots of see the opponent getting on a strategy that is like not anticipated, so being able to be flexible. That's why you have to be mindful every single turn, so you can you have to be real. Like mindfulness is a real big topic, just knowing exactly what you're doing every single turn. Yeah. So we're gonna talk about figuring out the opponent's plan. So what's your take on it, Ryan?
I would say that the main thing to think about is what is his plan in terms of like what does each card say about his thought process and his decisions, right? So if he buys a scrap card right away, you're like, okay, he's going to go scrap. How do I beat scrap? Damage, discards. So a lot of times someone will buy a scrap card early and I'll go, okay, I'm going aggro. Like it changes my plans right away. My opponent starts buying up blob cards and I'm like, okay, he's going damage. I will probably need to go base, probably need to go healing. I'm going to have to protect myself. I'm going to play a little more defensively. My opponent picks up a base or picks up a lot of trade. I go, okay, he's probably going to try to go for a big card strategy. So I can either go aggro, try to kill him right away. I can try to buy up scrap cards, make my deck more efficient than his, kill him before he can actually get to the big drops, things like that. So every time my opponent buys a card, it says something about what he's trying to do. And that in turn allows you to try to counter that plan and figure it out.
It's much better for you to play off your opponent's plans than for you to figure out your initial plan, So like you have an initial plan, but be ready just to scrap that right away, Whatever your opponent does, like if they get something a little bit, if they get a little farther ahead on their strategy than you, be ready to take that initial plan and just put it aside and say, I'm going to actually follow what my opponent's doing, Because like as before, like if you remember, like I played my brother Steve in China, like 200 games, and all he did was play solitaire, He just like wanted to follow his colors and do his strategies. And you know what I did? I just followed his coattail. I was just like, oh, he's doing scrap, I'm doing damage, like it was as simple as like that. He's getting lots of bases. I'm getting lots of base destroying and other effects. Like he's getting a lot of heal. I'm going to limit the amount that he can heal by taking away his scrap cards. Like stuff like that. It's just I much prefer to follow what an opponent's doing and be off their coattails than to just follow my initial plans. Sometimes I'll just do it for sheer curiosity of like, oh, this is kind of a cool combo. Great. I don't care about what the opponent's doing, but then more times than not, I'm going to lose to better opponents because that's just like how it works here. We're not playing solitaire. We're playing against an actual person,
A lot of people are inflexible with their play style. They're inflexible with sort of the deck archetypes that they like to do. And that was sort of the first thing that was keeping me down is I really liked blues. I really liked healing. I really liked bases.
All of your preferences.
I was trying to do that strategy every time. Every time I played a game, I'm like, I'm going to win this game 85 to nothing. Yeah. I see a blue card, I buy it. I see a trade, I buy it. Right? And, it's fine in the first, level 5 to level 10 maybe. But once you start getting past that, your opponents start realizing what you're doing. And that's when you have to adjust. And you have to, if you go into it with a plan before you even see the trade row, if you're just like, this is my strategy and this is the only strategy I'm going to do, that gets exploitable. Your opponents realize what you're doing and then they counter it. And so what you want to do is you want to be the one that's doing the countering. When you first look at the trade row, buying cards that are really good for any strategy are great. Cards that draw, cards that scrap. These are good cards for any strategy. But when your opponent starts committing to a strategy, he picks up a blob and then a second blob. All right, I know what he's doing. He picks up 2 scrappers. All right, I know what he's doing. He picks up 2 yellows. I know what he's doing. He's going to give those tells off on his strategy, and then that's when you can start to counter. So you always want to make sure that you're thinking about your opponent's plays and what is good for your opponent's deck and not just your own deck.
Like, we used to think of Star Realms as just kind of like, oh, like this very simple card game. Yeah, you get lots of damage and like, boom, like you win. Like, but because of the 4 factions and because of the multiple effects, it's actually a lot more complex than that, And I would compare it to a game like chess, Like chess, I think, is a great analogy for it because you're always trying to read what your opponent is doing, Not the same amount of complexity, obviously, but I'm just saying as just like, I think it's a good mirror to what you're doing here because it's like, yeah, if you move this rook here or you move this queen here, it's the same like, oh, well, he's getting, scrappers, I'm going to get, more damage in order to beat him. Like, so it's kind of that same adrenaline, that same rush that you get from like trying to figure out what your opponent's doing in chess. I would figure it's like the same feeling for me when I'm actually playing Star Realms. I like Star Realms better than chess because you have really cool artwork and really amazing fun ships to battle your opponent, and so that's really what I wanted to say about it,
Yeah, and it's a good analogy because you have to be because you can see what your opponent's doing. The difference in Star Realms is you're putting cards into your deck, so sometimes you forget. You're like, oh, what did he buy? I don't know. So you can always want to be making sure that you're clicking on your opponent's deck, you're seeing what they're doing, you're seeing what they're buying, and you're always sort of aware of their plan. And that way you can allow yourself to formulate your strategy, And also realizing that every move builds off of itself,
Yeah,
every time you buy a card, you not only get that card, your opponent does not get that card, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you're going to want to buy cards just to keep it away from them. Sometimes you'll want to buy cards because you're like, this card's really good for my deck, and yeah, I may allow my opponent to get another card that's good, but this card is just so good, I got to do it. So you always want to be weighing the cost of buying a card, not just for your deck, but for your opponent's deck too.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to think about it as like, your win percentage is right here, and then like you say you're winning, and then you keep on buying really cool things, your opponent's right here, and then there's a card that comes in that maybe not benefits your deck. It may only benefit your deck here, but if you give that card to this opponent, your opponent suddenly like comes up on the winner percentage, because like, and if you'd get it, it may like stunt your deck a little bit, but then he stays here, or she stays here. Like, and that's really what you want to think about is when you're figuring out the opponent's plan, you have to see what cards are worth it in terms of the cost reward, for you and your opponent. And that's something that we can definitely go more in depth, as we talk in this podcast, is what are the costs, the rewards versus the costs, and what benefits me versus my opponent, and really weighing that out and making the right choice. Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for listening and watching the Dreadcutter Podcast.
Thank you for scrapping your way through our podcast. We really appreciate you spending our time just chilling with our geekiness over here.
Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.